All right. So the second problem in Chapter 6 scenarios starts out asking you to read the introduction, method, and the first paragraph of the results sections of the research report, Becoming a Vampire Without Being Bitten, the Narrative Collective Assimilation Hypothesis by Gabriel and Young, which is a study that was published in Psychological Science in 2011. A PDF of the study is in a box folder for the class. And if you'd like to see an additional explanation of the implicit association test used in the study, you can find that at the URL listed there. So I have the PDF pulled up here, and we're supposed to read through the introduction, which motivates the study, the but more importantly, what we care about is the method. So we are comparing people who read comparing people who read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone to people who read Twilight. Okay, so, and the authors are hypothesizing that reading Twilight would make people identify more with being a vampire. All right. So we've got in here, we have a whole bunch of other information about these scales, right? And then we have some information about how they how these people were directed to either read from Twilight or read from Harry Potter. And let me just say, the Harry Potter group got the better version of this. But they finished the passage and then had to take what's called the implicit association test, which is a test that's fairly commonly used in social psychology and makes you pair one category of things with values from another category of things. So a common one is to have to respond to like scientist and female paired together, and then scientist and male paired together, and looking at the difference between the response times for those two pairs means that it gives you some idea of how much longer it takes people to associate female with scientist, which is an association of implicit bias. So in this study, participants are asked to identify me with wizard, not me, so they or theirs, with vampire. And the goal is to see whether people who read the vampire bit tended to respond more quickly to the me vampire combination. People who read Harry Potter should respond more quickly to me and wizard combinations. And you can actually take all sorts of different implicit association tests if you want online at that Harvard link. So once they have done the implicit association test, they also administered a measure of collective assimilation. which I guess asks people to rate themselves on a number of dimensions that are relevant to the two stories. How British do you feel seems like a really weird way to measure that, but whatever. All right. The important part here is the little bit in the results section where it says IAT scores were calculated by subtracting the mean response latencies for trials that paired me words with vampire words and not me words with wizard words from the response latencies that paired me with wizard and not me with vampire. Okay, so we've got the thing that they are subtracting, which is the response time for things that pair me with vampire, and we're subtracting from that the response time from things that pair me words with wizard. So positive IAT scores indicate association between the self and vampire. Lower scores indicate association between the self and wizards. All right. And then we get to the graphs. Okay. So our two groups are, did they read Harry Potter or Twilight? Our continuous variable is what was the implicit association test score. And that's more or less what we need to get out of the study. All right, so moving back to this. This is pretty clearly, I think, an experiment because researchers assigned individuals to read either Harry Potter or Twilight. So, individuals assigned to read Harry Potter, Twilight. And that's what makes it an experiment. All right. So, the study used volunteers. Which implies that there was no random sampling. Which implies that we have to make an argument about being able to generalize. So, okay. But we do know that they randomly assigned individuals to treatments. So, we can infer causality. All right. So the explanatory variable is I think this worksheet should say what are the response and explanatory variables. So, whoops, sorry about that. I'll fix it later. All right, so the response is IAT score, which is the difference me plus vampire, and me plus wizard. Response time? All right. And that is the amount an individual identifies with being a vampire. All right. Then the explanatory variable is which passage they read. All right. The data wasn't actually included in the study, so I tried to simulate results that matched the plots that were in the study relatively closely. So let's just fix this question. And then we're going to work the rest of this through with IAT score rather than the narrative collective assimilation score, because that's another response variable. Okay? All right, so here's the simulated data. We see that people who read Harry Potter tended to have negative IAT scores, so let's just remind ourselves wizard versus vampire. So we've got some sort of continuum here, and this would be neutral. All right? To use theory-based inference for this problem, we need either symmetric distributions or more than 20 observations plus not horribly asymmetric. So we could argue that this one is pretty symmetric. This one's a little bit more skewed, and maybe not. You could argue about it, but it doesn't really matter because we have more than 20 in each group. So we can say more than 20 per group plus not highly skewed. Which means theory is okay. Okay, so the population parameter is going to be mu vampire minus mu wizard. The sample statistic is x bar vampire minus x bar wizard, where V equals vampire, W equals wizard. All right, next part is to calculate the standard error of the sample statistics. So we start out with our square root. We have S squared V over NV plus S squared W over NW equals square root 0.130 squared over 68. I'm doing this backwards, sorry about that. 0.126 squared over 72. Luckily, it doesn't matter because addition is commutative. All right. Then that gives us square root of 0.016 over 72. I'm switching them back now. Plus 0.017 over 68 equals square root of 4.686 times 10 to the negative fourth, which is 0.022. Okay. And the next problem asks us to construct a confidence interval. So statistic plus or minus 2 times standard error, which is, I guess we never did actually compute our statistic, but we have 3.370 minus negative 0.381 plus or minus 2 times 0.022, which is 0.751 plus or minus 0.044, which is 0.708, comma 0.794. All right, and so that's our interval. We would interpret that as we are 95% confident that on average, people who read Twilight will have an IAT score which is between 0.708 and 0.794, higher than people who read Harry Potter. This indicates that there is a significant difference in self-identification with vampire or wizard group membership, depending on the story read at the beginning of the study. All right, the end. So that would be Chapter 6's worksheet.